Welcome to our continuing series on Pirkei Avot. We're on chapter 5, Mishna 8, and we want to dedicate this episode respectfully in memory of Levy ben Moshe Esther and Elisheva Yael bat Levy, and also in memory of Shlomo ben Moshe Esther. And now, over to Mike.
Thank you, Rav Mashiach. So in this Mishnah number 8, we're going to talk about 10 things that were created Ben Hashmashot before Shabbos, the twilight period before Shabbos. Funnily enough, I was created. I was born Ben Hashmashot on Friday night.
Yeah.
And
it caused all sorts of problems for your mitzvah Sedra.
Yeah, it was miscalculated which Sedra would I be reading. So I ended up actually learning one and then told, no, you have to learn the next one. Told us on Vayetze. It was actually very valuable to learn both.
Absolutely.
And it served me very well.
It was a happy mistake, and I think you took it very well at the time.
Yeah, but no problem. I enjoyed learning my Torah Sedra and generally learning with Rabbi Abraham's.
Yeah. You should live with me well, but
yes. So what does our Mishnah say? Asara devarim nivru'u ba'erev Shabbat ben hashmashot ve'elohen. 10 things were created on the eve of Shabbos at twilight. They were Pi ha'aretz, the mouth of the earth, Pi ha'be'er, the mouth of the well, Pi ha'aton, the mouth of the ass, Ha'keshet, the rainbow, V'haman, the manna, V'hamata, the rod. This means the staff, Moses' staff. V'hashamir, the Shamir beetle, I believe this refers
to a worm, I thought.
It's a worm, okay.
Yeah.
It's good to refer to the beetle. But a worm. Hakasav, the writing script. V'hamaktev, V'hamechtav, and the manner of writing. V'haluchot, and the tablets of the commandments. V'yesh omrim, and there are others who say af hamazikin, and also the demons. I think when I was growing up, perhaps that would be attested to by my parents. Ve'elu shel Avraham Avinu.
It doesn't say the
Ukvora shel Moshe, and the tomb of Moses. Ve'elu shel Avraham Avinu, and the tomb of the ram of Abraham, our father. V'yesh omrim af tzavat b'tzavat asuya, and others also say tongs made from tongs, or tongs made with tongs. But we'll analyse this.
Yes, it's that tongs who made tongs is like, you use tongs to make other tongs, but who made the first tong? It's like a way of saying which came first, the chicken or the egg.
That's exactly. That's exactly what a good analogy. So, what is this Ben Hashmashot? What is this period that occurred that all of these were created in that period of creation? So, with the advent of the first Shabbos, as the sixth day ended, Kadosh Baruch Hu concluded his work of creation. The universe, with its vast array of forces and forms of life, was completed. And the great stage on which the whole drama of creation had already begun. But between the end of day and the onset of darkness is the intermediate period of twilight that the Mishnah calls Ben Hashmashot, between the luminaries. When the sun has gone down and the moon has not yet risen over the night, we human beings cannot ascertain how much of this time is yet day and how much is evening. Therefore, each Friday, once the sun has set, the Shabbos is already here for us in full force. But to end Shabbos, we wait until after, and we wait beyond the shadow of a doubt. To HaKadosh Baruch Hu, however, everything is revealed with precision. He would know to the split second how long during twilight it was still the sixth day before the first Shabbos begins. In this brief interval, he could have continued creation, but our written Torah, speaking as our Chachomim put it in the language of human beings, would record nothing of it, lest it seem as though heaven violated Shabbos. So what he created then by and large did not appear then. Each phenomenon waited for its proper time, but whenever it came to amaze and confound, each had been prepared at the twilight that ended creation, preset to appear long after. Thus, the 10 phenomena that we're about to talk about, the laws of nature suffered no interference or contradiction. These deviations from the natural were built in at the very creation of nature. So let's examine what these 10 things were, and actually how they connect to Pirkei Avot. So, we've had these few Mishnayot that deal with miracles and this and that, but what has it got to do with ethics?
Yeah.
Where are the ethics?
True.
It's very important. So let's learn how each of these can relate to an ethical principle. So, and I'm going to bring the Meiri's commentary regarding what he believed to be the significance ethically for us, why they were in Pirkei Avot. So let's talk about the mouth of the earth. Now we know the mouth of the earth was the when Korach had gathered a mutinous viewers crowd against Moshe and Aaron. They basically doubted the leadership of Bnei Yisrael by Moshe and Aaron. They weren't convinced that they should be leading, and they wanted to start a mutinous rabble. So Moshe, who couldn't convince Korach and this throng that him and Aaron were the right ones to lead them, finally Hashem instructed Moshe, and he told the Bnei Yisrael to get back a safe distance, and then he exclaimed, and I quote, "With this shall you know that the Lord has sent me to do all these acts." This is Moshe talking. "That it has not been out of my own heart. If in the way that all men die will they die, and the general fate of all men will be visited upon them, then Hashem has not sent me. But if Hashem creates something new, and the ground opens its mouth and swallows them up with all that belongs to them, and they go down alive into Sheol, into the netherworld, then you shall know that these men have contemptuously blasphemed HaKadosh Baruch Hu." And it continues that the ground under them split apart and the earth swallowed them up, so that they and all their belongings went down alive into the netherworld, and the earth closed over them and they perished. So this was more than just a natural fissure in the earth. It wasn't just a sinkhole that we see sometimes on YouTube appearing in the news. This was an immediate opening and immediate closing after they swallowed up Korach and his followers.
There's also an idea that why is it called the mouth of the earth? Why is it called the hole in the earth? So, because my simple answer is because the mouth was the way that Korach started his meeting. His weapon was he had the gift of the gab. He was a very, very good orator, and so therefore he was punished by the mouth swallowing him up. Yeah. And by the way, everything that was even remotely connected to him went into that hole. Even a pin that he lent somebody else. Every single thing, everybody. The only ones. There's Midrashim talking about how his sons survived because fell on a precipice, because he said the sons of Korach did not die, so they were like Asaph was one of the sons of Korach, and one of the Tehillim at least one of the Tehillim is attributed to him. So, yeah.
So that's the second. What is the second? The second thing that was created was the mouth of the well. Now this is I think this is Miriam's well.
Be'er Miriam, yeah.
This is a bit of background. In the Midbar, the Bnei Yisrael found themselves without drinking water, and as we've learned in previous Mishnah, they complained to Moshe. So Moshe was instructed to strike the rock with his staff, and then the water flowed plentifully. And not until Miriam died many years later did they complain again of a lack of water. I think the first instance was in the Refidim, as we see in Shemot. So why were there no shortages and complaints in the years between as the people sojourned from one place to another? The tradition known to Chazal was that everywhere it well appeared as though a great merit had occurred. Now this had occurred through Miriam when she earned it as she sang HaKadosh Baruch Hu's glory at the miracle of the Red Sea. This we learn in Midrash Rabbah in Numbers from Shemot 15:20 to 21, and only when she died did it fail to appear, so it came to be called Miriam's well. So to bring it to the surface, Chazal say the heads of princes of the 12 tribes would stand by it with their staffs and chant, "Spring up, O well, sing to it," and each one then drew water from it to his tribe. So what do we learn from that? The Meiri says it drives home the principle that virtue is rewarded. So the third, the mouth of the ass. So now we're going to look at the story of Balaam. We learn how Balak, the king of Moab, he was fearful of the Bnei Israel traveling through the wilderness, and he sent for Balaam, who was a kind of wizard and seer, to curse the Bnei Israel. So Balaam, who had the power to contact God, asked if he should go, and Hashem replied no. But he asked the second time, and he was then allowed to go. I think Hashem was angry and wanted to teach him a lesson. So the next day, Balaam rose and he saddled his donkey and set off with Balak's higher officers, his sort of chief of command. And God was obviously quite angry with him, and he wanted to teach him a lesson. So he's on his donkey's back, and along the path, 3 times an angel stood before his donkey to block the way, and only the donkey saw him. The first time it turned off into a pathway, and Balaam struck it to turn it back. The second time it pressed against a wall and crushed Balaam's foot. Again he struck her. The third time the angel left it no place to go, and it lay down under its master. Very angry, Balaam beat the ass with his staff, and it says that Hashem opened the mouth of the ass, and she said to Balaam, and I quote, "What have I done to you that you have struck me these 3 times?" And Balaam replied to the ass, "Because you have made sport of me. If only there were a sword in my hand, I would kill you." The Chazal say that the animal retorted, "You cannot kill me unless you have a sword. How do you expect to kill an entire people with your tongue?" So, unable to reply, the disgraced Balaam tried to disown the beast, denying his companions that it was his. And the ass further said, "Am I not your ass on which you have ridden all your life long to this day?" This we learn in Midrash Tanchuma on Balak 9. So, to paraphrase Rav Bachya and Magen Avot, not an actual donkey's mouth was created shortly in that Ben Hashmashot period before the first Shabbos. That would have made the mouth a very, very old, older than it is, but its eventual power of speech was predetermined, and we know that its power to speech was only in that instant. It was not something that this particular animal was prevalent or would speak at any other time. So let's move on to the next one, the rainbow. We know that So what does that last? Let's just give Mary's commentary. He says that this incident with Balaam was to illustrate the watchful divine care for the preservation of the children of Israel. He was about to curse them, and he was dealt with by Hashem through the ass. So the next one is the rainbow. We know that the flood destroyed all life on earth except for Noah and his family, and also the creatures in the ark. HaKadosh Baruch Hu made a pact with Noach and his sons and said, and I quote, "This is a sign of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature for all future generations. I've set my bow in the clouds. When I bring clouds over the earth and the bow is seen in the clouds, I will remember my covenant, and the waters shall never again become a flood to destroy all flesh." It's from Bereshit chapter 9, 12 to 15. So we know you may ask a question. In fact, the Pirkei Avot has a question. Whilst the phenomenon of a rainbow is itself a natural law, what made it so divine? We are able to produce rainbows using mirrors and prisms and things like that. We can actually do it ourselves. We can create a little mirror. But what was the ness and what is the divine aspect to it? The Pirkei Avot has the answer. He says the phenomenon is a natural law. The formation of a cloud to show it is only by divine direction. Therefore, the key element of the covenant is, "And it shall be when I bring clouds over the earth, and the bow is seen in the clouds." So, man, you can build ways of making rainbows, but not in nature. You can't order clouds in the way that you want to make a rainbow. So this would mean, as Pirkei Avot concludes, that clouds in general were created at twilight on the sixth day, and it was then decreed upon them, as it were, when and where to show the rainbow. It would also mean that until the covenant, no rainbow had ever been seen. And the next one, the fifth thing that was created, Ben Hashmashot, was the manna. This was the food that Bnei Israel received on a daily basis, fresh with the morning dew, and it was what they ate for a period of time, and what should have satisfied them. So we learn, no matter how much or how little anybody picked of this manna, when he returned home to his tent, he found exactly the measure of an omer for each one in the family. It couldn't be saved for the next day because it turned rancid. On Friday, the Bnei Israel were told to pick up 2 measures that were available. They were found to be double measures, so they didn't have to go out on Shabbos. And anyway, no manna dropped on Shabbos, and it didn't spoil by the next day, which is what normally happens if you had one portion. So Chazal adds to this account from old tradition. Every kind of savoury taste could be tasted in it. If someone wanted to enjoy a specific food, be it fish, chicken, or whatever, so did his manna taste like that. Even if he didn't say a word, but just thought about what he wanted it to taste like. It was easily and completely digested and absorbed and didn't produce any waste matter to be evacuated. They could eat it all day long and it wouldn't harm them. The question is, if it could taste like anything, why didn't the Bnei Israel want it to taste like meat, which is what they were craving?
Yes.
It's a good question. That's interesting.
Maybe it's the texture they wanted. Because that's a lot of the experience is in the texture of certain foods. So I don't know. Or maybe they were just dafka. They just say we want dafka real meat. None of this vegan stuff.
No substitute to the original, right? Okay. Right, so the next one, the 6th thing that was created by Hashmashot was the staff of Moses. As the burning bush blazed, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave Moshe the first of many instructions that were to guide him as the leader of a people now enslaved in Egypt. And he said to Moshe, Hashem said to Moshe, "And you shall take in your hands the staff, with which you shall work the acts of wonder." Moshe returned to Egypt, and we read he took the staff of God in his hand. This is from Shemot 4, chapter 4, verses 17 and 20. Basically, with this staff, he was able to perform miracles before both the Hebrews and Pharaoh. And with it, his brother Aaron, and he set off to do set off the 10 plagues. and with it also he struck the Red Sea and divided it, and as we've read in previous Mishnayot, did various variations to the seabed for the Bnei Israel, and he also struck it on the rocks in the wilderness, and the water flowed. This was also something of feature. So what was this staff of Moses? This was apparently made of sapphire, and the staff had Hashem's name on it, and according to another tradition, the initial letters of the 10 plagues.
That's what we say on in Haggadah, the Tzach Agash Ba'achav.
Yeah, I didn't realise it was on the staff of
Yeah,
Moses.
yeah,
I didn't
yeah.
realise.
If it's made of sapphire, it would have been the same material as the Luchot, I would have thought. Luchot was also made of sapphire. I could be wrong there, that's just my own idea, thought.
So how did Moshe acquire the staff? Now, this is recorded in Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, and also the Sefer Hayashar. So he, according to Midrash, there was a tale. It was created Ben Hashmoshot before Shabbos. It was given to Odom in the Garden of Eden. Odom gave it to Enoch, who gave it to Methuselah. He in turn passed it on to Noah. Noah bequeathed it to his son Shem, who then transmitted it to Avraham. From Avraham it went to Isaac, then to Jacob, who took it with him to Egypt, where he went with his family to Joseph to live there. Jacob gave it to his son Joseph. At Joseph's death, all his possessions were removed to the palace of Pharaoh. Jethro was then one of Pharaoh's wizards, and sensing the staff's great powers, he desired it in his heart, and he took it and struck the ground in his garden at Midian. From then no one could pull out the staff until Moses came. He could read the Hebrew letters on it, and he pulled it out readily, knowing then by oracular powers that Moses would be the redeemer of the Bnei Israel. Yisro gave him his daughter Zipporah in marriage. So it was a time that when Moshe tended the sheep of his new father-in-law, that he came to the burning bush in the wilderness to his first fateful encounter with God, and Hashem asked him, "What is that in your hand?" And he said, "A staff." So we were introduced there to the concepts of the staff. And what does the Meiri say? He says that this was essential for the survival of the whole religion, because if it wasn't for the staff, there would be no splitting of the Red Sea, there would be no initiation of the 10 plagues, and so on. So this was essential. Next on this list is the Shamir. Now let's look at what the Shamir, why the Shamir was, what was it and why was it needed? King Solomon, when he was building the temple, made a ban of using a blade or a sword on cutting stones. He says, as it says, "If you make me an altar of stone, you shall not build it of hewn stone." So if you wield your blade, literally sword, upon it, you profane it. So no iron blade would be used to cut stone for the altar. As the Mishna puts it very touchingly, and I quote, "Iron, or weapons and instruments that were created to shorten human life, while the altar was made to lengthen human life. For it would not be right to raise an iron instrument for the altar." For Solomon, the ban was to all stones used in the entire sanctuary. We also find this ban on using, I think, weapons of war to cut down trees for sieges. I think that's also part of it. So,
does it mention about the Shamir worm?
yeah, this is what we're doing now. But it doesn't mention it as a worm. We're going to come to that. So the plans were given by Masorah through Moses, gave it to Joshua, who then transmitted it to the elders, and from there the plans went for the sanctuary. Plans went to Shmuel and then on to King David. In each case, the one who gave it and the one who received the plans stood as a mark of reverence. I think when King David was ready to take over the. So when King David was about to do this Matzorah with King Solomon, he was actually quite ill, and apparently he had a severe fever, and 7 times a day his bedding was changed because of perspiration. But at the end of his life, he prayed for one last moment of strength. He rose, he managed to stand to give over these sacred plans to King Solomon. And King Solomon, you know, followed those plans, and we read the house as it was constructed was built of a whole stone as it might be prepared at the quarry, and neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron was heard in the house while it was being built. So the question is, how could enough stones be made to fit or to build an entire sanctuary without using metal to cut or dress a single one? Tradition has it that Solomon himself did not know at first, and he asked the learned scholars, and they replied, there is the Shamir, they replied, that Moses used for the gems of the breastplate. So this was something that was able to cut very efficiently and completely any material. So
that's miraculous.
It's miraculous. So what exactly was this amazing object? A creature, says Chazal, no bigger than the grain of barley, about the third of an inch, placed on the hardest wood and stone, it would split them open as into 2 writing tablets. No iron, no hard metal could stay its path. It would simply split its way open. It could be carried only wrapped in a cloth or tufts of wool in a lead container filled with barley bran. And when Solomon's temple was destroyed, this little creature vanished. So I don't know what it was, but you could consider it probably something that performed like a diamond drill.
Like a diamond cutter. I think most explanations say it was a worm. There's a whole big story, which we haven't really got time to go into it now, how they obtained this worm. It was under...
well, I can tell. Yeah, I've seen the story here. It's about it's a crazy story. Yeah, exactly. I'll tell you what I know about this. It said they had to force this Ashmedai, a demon, to tell them.
King of the demons.
The king of the Ashmedai, the king of demons, would know, they said. So what they had to do is they had to learn about this demon and find a way to trap him, which they did. So King Solomon sent his trusted Benayahu ben Yehoiada with a plan, and in a short period of time the demon king was captive before King Solomon. So Ashmedai knew where the whereabouts of the Shamir was. King Solomon sent another servant on a distant journey, and soon it was brought to him. And a different tradition has it that an eagle, the king of birds, answered Solomon's plea to the world of creatures to help him, and it flew off to Gan Eden and brought him the Shamir.
Ooh.
So yes, that's another one. And number 8, the writing script. So Rashi and the Machzor understand the Mishna's term, the written form of the letters. As Meiri elaborates, people find they have and share this in common consent, but it is not inherent in nature itself. Anthropologists, the evolutionists of human development, consider a writable alphabet as a remarkable achievement. Indeed, it's a milestone in man's psychological growth towards civilization. Our old Torah regarded as part of God's miraculous creation. We actually can find some source of Hashem's reference to this in Shemot 24:12, and he said, and the Lord said to Moses, come up to me on the mountains and be there, and I will give you a tablet of stone and the Torah law and commandments which I have written for their instruction. So the concept of writing now is a major evolutionary step in spiritual and mental development. And again, this was the Meiri says that just writing script was a major escalation in mental and spiritual development. So it was essential in the evolution of the Jewish religion. And then we talk about the ninth, the manner of writing. Again, Rashi and the Machzor we find that the Mishna's word is machtev, to write. So the matter of writing, this is like a a stylus or a graver, which is an instrument for cutting letters into stone. So along with the Ten Commandments that he engraved, HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave man the ability to imitate him, first with a quill or a graver, and then first with a graver or a stylus, and then with a quill, and nowadays with a pen and a machine. A man records his words for others to read. So you can even say that modern technology is, in some respects, a continuation of this manner of writing, the ninth of these things that were created Ben Hashmashot in the first Erev Shabbos. For others, however, the word is michtav, denoting the letters in which the Ten Commandments were cut into the original stone tablets. For it states that the tablets were written on both sides. On the one side and on the other they were written. And the tablets were the work of God, and the michtav, the writing, was the writing of God graven upon the tablets. This then was his direct work. I think there was a miracle that occurred that you could read. It was carved straight through, but you could read from one side as you could read from the other.
I think the sides as well. Reversed. There's 6 sides. I think you read from any side. And
now the 10th and last of these 10 things that were created Ben Hashmashot were the tablets. The original stone tablets, or the Ten Commandments, or were made of celestial sapphire, and they had letters cut through completely. But the Samach and Nun, the middle parts, didn't fall out. They seemed to appear to hover, or they suspended without any support. And also, like I mentioned, the writing could be read on both sides, and neither one appeared as mirror writing or reversed from right to left. So other traditions teach that the tablets had 4 equal sides, and on each of them the commandments appeared, and in between the commandments were written all the precepts of the Torah in detail. Yet the tablets measured no more than 6 handbreadths, or 2 feet in each dimension. The sapphire was far too heavy for anyone to carry. Moshe, however, bore the tablets with ease. This is also mentioned in Pirkei the Rabbi Eliezer. So what happened? Moshe obviously smashed them when the people worshipped the golden calf, and the fragments were retained in the ark of the Mishkan along with the second set of tablets. And so those are the principal 10 that are mentioned here, and there are a few other that are mentioned that they say, other commentators say, was the demons. This is the 11th. These are mazikim, or destructive spirits, or shadim as they often call, which are mentioned in the Talmuds. How were they created? We read that God said, "Let the earth bring forth nefesh, the spirit of the living creature after its kind, cattle and creeping thing, and the beast of the earth after its kind." So, and God made the beast of the earth and the cattle and everything that creeps upon the ground. This we learn in Genesis, the first chapter, 24 and 25 verses. But one sage noted that Hashem formed the nefesh, the spirits of 4 kinds of living organisms, but the bodies of only 3. So this leaves room for the concept of a spirit world. So some commentaries would suggest that the term might denote less mysterious and better known so-called destructive forces, even such as virus organisms, or some aspects of human nature which are called demons. When you say everybody has demons within themselves, doesn't mean you have a shade in you, but your personal demons are also destructive forces of your character. You've got to deal with you've got to face your demons.
Oh, of course,
right?
yeah. That's the phrase.
But some also say that it could be a natural thing, literally like virus. Who never knows? This pandemic, you never know that we find ourselves in. And number 12, the tomb of Moses. This is very interesting. When Moshe died, the Torah records he, referring to Hashem, buried him in the valley of the land of Moab opposite Bet Peor, and no man knows to his grave to this day. So why was it necessary for HaKadosh Baruch Hu to make his burial place a secret? The medieval commentary Lekatov on this verse gives a telling answer. It quotes, "So that the people of Israel should not go and establish the sanctuary theirs, to offer sacrifices and incense, so that the heathen nations of the world shall not defile his grave with their idols and abominations." So, very interesting. Moshe, obviously we don't know where Moshe was buried, or we do know, but we don't know where the actual burial plot
Site is, yeah.
But the reason why it's probably best that it's not known is it will become a place of such veneration that it would almost be godlike in some senses, and that would go opposite to everything that we know. Moshe was a faithful servant of God. He never intended himself to be a minor god, so to speak, or a distraction from God. It's very important. And don't forget, if Moshe Rabbeinu is venerated amongst other religions, and for it then to be subject to them as a place of holiness, or a place of pilgrimage, would be it would be a nightmare. Honestly, it would be a nightmare.
He's called Nabi Musar in
By the
other religions.
Other people. So and let's move on to the 13th. Is the ram that was substituted for Isaac with Avraham. So that moment in the sacrifice of Isaac, when the angel ordered Avraham, and I quote, "Do not put your hand to the lad and do nothing to him," we read further that Avraham lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, behind him was a ram caught in a thicket by its thorns. And Avraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. We learn in Bereshit chapter 22. So he came ready to sacrifice his son, and to lose every vestige of happiness, he was going to scale a new mountain peak of religious dedication. And almost at his goal, with his hand over with the blade next to his son's throat, heaven seemed to bid him to stop climbing and go down. This he would not. He was reluctant to do, even though he had come so far. And it was then that he found the ram, and his HaKadosh Baruch Hu assured him that it would be accepted as fully equivalent to Isaac. His son would live, yet he would also scale this religious dedication peak. A new level had been found of observance and love for God. So the ram was needed then from the time of creation to teach that man can indeed rise from before heaven through total utter sacrifice, but care must be taken against heedless, unnecessary, mistaken human sacrifice. The drive to make offerings must be properly channeled. And we know at that time there was Molech, which was a god that people used to sacrifice their children to,
passing through the fire,
in imitation of this heathen practice. With the ram, Avraham could properly express his utter devotion and readiness to serve Hashem. Says Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa, of that ram of Abraham, not one thing turned out purposeless. The ash that remained after it was sacrificed as a burnt offering formed the foundation of the inner altar in the sanctuary. There were 10 sinews in the ram, corresponding to the 10 strings of the harp in which David played. From the hide came the belt for Elijah's loins, and for the 2 horns of the ram, the left one became the shofar heard at Mount Sinai. One on the right, greater than the left, is destined to sound at the ingathering of exiles. This is from Pirkei to Rabbi Eliezer, chapter 31. And finally, the tongs made with tongs. As you very, very correctly mentioned in the beginning, it's exactly like the chicken and the egg idea. What came first? You need tongs to deal with molten metal. So how were the first? You need molten metal to create tongs. So how was this achieved? Well, this must be through creativity or invention. We are charged to by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We read, generation after generation shall improve your works. And also we read, one generation to another shall praise thy works. This is from Psalms. We are commanded to use our superior creativity and invention to improve things from generation to generation, and this is a thought about man's capacities and limitations. Humans have not only a right, but they are obliged to master and use Hashem's world to creatively invent and refine and transform. As it says, the Almighty blessed the seventh day and hallowed it in, because he rested from all his work which he had created to act. This is Genesis 2:3, i.e. for man to act. He must continue the work of creation to bring it ever closer to perfection. Thus, each generation has an obligation to improve the world it finds. So I'm going to conclude this with a summary of Meiri's ethical interpretation regarding all of these things that were created Ben Hashmashot before Shabbos on the first day of creation. So the Meiri summarizes that all of these were meant to preserve the Jewish people, its faith and its good fortune. The mouth of the earth, in which Korach's followers perished, affirmed the cardinal principle that wickedness is punished. The mouth of the well, that guarantees the Bnei Israel's water in the wilderness for the sake of Miriam's great merit, drove home the corresponding principle that virtue is rewarded. The mouth of the donkey, an aspect of heaven's tight control over Balaam, illustrates the watchful divine care for the preservation of the people of Israel. So too the manna from above, and the staff of Moses, through which the 10 plagues came to Egypt, for without the plagues Bnei Israel would not have been liberated, and the Jewish faith would have perished. The rainbow also tokens the same watchful concern for the preservation of mankind. Since only with the Shamir could the Beis HaMikdash be built, it was indispensable for the continuing religion of Israel. So were the tablets with the 10 Commandments vitally needed. Again, language and writing were essential for man's mental and spiritual developments. Therefore, at the end of its creation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu ensured that his purposes and aims would emerge to flourish in human history. And I just want to thank Irving Bunim's Ethics of Sinai for excerpts of what I've been reading. His expert commentary on Pirkei Avot is something else.
Yeah, Dr. Bunim he's been indispensable. At least the last couple of chapters. It's a incredible resource, and Michael, I remember you telling me this is a very rare resource as well.
Well, it's not in print anymore. I've used it in this series, for part of the series, and I've got to say it's rare that you see such a high quality and wide-ranging commentary on Pirkei Avot or any other type of commentary. It's really remarkable, and but it's very, very hard to find. So it's been out of print for a long time, and I'm glad it was made available to me. And a great resource, and that's why I want to, as a homage to Irving Bunim, who did so magnificently.
Fantastic. So I hope you out there appreciate that. This is a very rare safer at the moment. So thank you so much, Michael. So until then, have a wonderful, safe and fantastic week.